alloy on the engine will now be melting, and finally, just in time to perhaps prevent the entire destruction of it, but the Johnson Oldfield BMW number 12, which was the quickest of the BMWs in practices. It was a fair way down in qualifying, qualified 33rd equal. This is the top of the hill, of course. Chris Oldfield and Victorian Greg Johnson, the riders. It's never been particularly well placed through the day.
And I perhaps shouldn't be the one to point out that smoking can be a health hazard.
Let's have a look at it again. Down there at the top of the hill. Oh, my goodness. Phew. Well, the rider was, the seat you can see has gone away from it. He's short of it over on the right-hand side of screen. And between the fire and that fall, that BMW is not worth a lot at the moment. It was worth $6,000 odd just before he came adrift at the top of the hill. Let's have a look at that slow motion. There it goes. Well, so lucky for the rider that he was just sliding his way to a halt as the BMW was pummeling itself and bursting into flames. And as I say, not much very salvageable from that bike, as bike 14, the Phyllis Cole Suzuki 1100, in 5th place at this moment, comes in for its pit stop. And again, the slick Suzuki pit stop, undo the top mounting point on a special jack, drop the wheel, and that means you've got to drop the whole swinging arm, which is a beautiful alloy swing arm on these bikes. Must be worth a fortune. The bikes themselves only worth about $4,500. Katanas, I think the big bikes at the moment, remarkably good value in Australia. Really very cheap for the performance and for the sophisticated engineering that's in them. 40 seconds. Axle in. 45.
Dropped one position so far behind the Andrew Johnson Greg Pretty bike.
Mick Cole, the man who was so frustrated years ago on a CBX Honda when he was caught in the pits with a pit stop that just went wrong when he was in the lead in the Castrol 6-hour. He's won at Suzuka in Japan, the 8-hour there. He's won at Calder, the 2-hour down in Victoria, as they run to 73 seconds. But he's never won the Castrol 6-hour. Michael Cole. Now number 1. In 4th place, the man immediately in front of him.
Only 4 bikes on the leading lap at this stage. Oh. And that's self-service, if ever you've seen it.
And going to a different rear to the Elite that they were running earlier. That's a different pattern. So they've not only changed tyre, they've changed type of tyre.
35 seconds. Rod Gray on the bike. Down and away in 40 seconds. A very good one for a tyre change. And away in 4th position. Still on the same lap according to the leaderboard, so that's very, very good going for them. It means that the other 3 riders, the first 3 riders, should be very close behind them on the road. Gray feels out the conditions, taking no risks at all. The current South African Formula 1 champion, which he won last weekend at Kyalami, the race meeting in which tragically Keith Peterson, elder brother of Dave Peterson, was killed, which is why Dave Peterson isn't here today, although he was entered.
But a great friend of Rod Gray's used to stay with him when they came to Gray's City in South Africa. Gray, solidly built man, quite tall and very stocky, some 82 kilos in weight. See him there being overtaken at this stage by the Kawasaki 750 of Roebuck Feeney, which is lying third in the 750 class. Just ranging up near him, and then of course as Gray gets into gear and starts to feel confident and to have felt out the track, he opens it up and pulls away. But let's go to the pits and to Dennis Neal and to find out about that pit stop.
This is the tyre off the third place bike, Neville Hiscock Action Suzuki. As you can see, it still has quite substantial tread. It was changed earlier in the race, however, with the weather conditions changing so dramatically, looking like it's going to settle in rain for the remainder of the race, I've decided to put a soft compound Metzler on the rear.
Interesting from Dennis Neal that they'd go to that. There's so far only been one team in the race on a Metzler tyre. That's the Richard Schooler Michael Doutzen Yamaha 750, which is sponsored by Metzler. But after all the big money that's been spent on the tyre war here, it's interesting that the people who've not spent so much money are suddenly coming into contention at a time when most needed in the race.
Bike number 28 being ridden by Ian Perrow, and Glenn Williams running third in the 750 class, actually running fairly much to the schedule that Perrow set last year, because they're running 11th outright, third in class. Last year they finished 9th outright and third in the 750 class. Last year on an XJ 750 Yamaha, this year transferring to Kawasaki. And doing a good job, but way out of contention to catch the class leaders, the New Zealanders Toomey and Holden, who lead for Suzuki in that class, from Yamaha running second, Kawasaki running third. A real mix of the three bikes. The only one not in contention there is the 550 Honda. It's an interesting little bike, fairly new model, the CBX 550, much smaller than most of the others, and of course down on capacity by 200 cc's.
Riding in third position, bike 2, Wayne Clark on the Mentor Motorcycles Honda 1100, and right behind him is Rod Gray on the Suzuki, who's one lap down and wants his way through. This should also be Clark's pit stop lap. He's had his second stint on the bike and is due to hand over again to Wayne Gardner. This team had to stop earlier, change a rear tyre after Clark was really dropping back in the opening stages. It stopped at 1 hour 4 minutes mark. It's just past the 4 hour mark now, 2/3 of race distance gone, and again Clark goes round the track, even though he keeps signalling to his pits that he's right to come in. Behind him, Rod Gray really getting into the groove now on the Neville Hiscock Suzuki 1100, entered by Action Suzuki. And that's lying in fourth position, one lap down, and wants to get through to get itself back onto the same lap as third place. Second position, bike 5, and there's third position there, bike 2. So second position, Peter Byers.
And fourth position, bike 1, but it's a lap in arrears.
And now he's through, so he's now on the same lap as Wayne Clark, but yet, of course, to catch Peter Byers and bike 7, Alan Blanco, Jeff French in the lead. Do we expect it this time? Yes, we do. Here he comes. Bike 2, Wayne Clark, on the Mentor Motorcycles, Honda 1100, to hand over to international Australian rider Wayne Gardner. Gardner to take his second stint on the bike. Riding on Pirelli tyres, which is why you see the people in Pirelli jackets running down to check the condition of the rear tyre. Gardner moves in to assist with the fuel change. Out comes the tyre. And in goes a new one. Less than 10 seconds gone now.
New Pirelli Phantom.
15 seconds. Come on, get that axle in.
Wheel lane on.
5 seconds. Clark off the bike, Gardner onto it.